Okay, my name is Shelley Plant, and I am the Nature Tourism Manager at Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. And I also chair the Wildlife Viewing and Nature Tourism Working Group for the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. And we host these webinars. And today's webinar comes out of our academy that we have every other year. So this is one of the sessions at our academy in Tucson in February of 2022. And it was so popular, people asked for a repeat performance so they could share it with colleagues and see it again. Again, we are recording it, so we'll have it on our YouTube channel with the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies later. So if someone missed it or you want to share it forward, we will be able to offer you that link soon. And with that, I am going to pass this over. This webinar is about Goose Chase app, using it for scavenger hunts. We're going to have questions in the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the course of the webinar, please put them in the chat. There's a natural break about halfway through that Anne Glick from Florida and I can jump in and ask the questions to Ben or Travis if you've had any, and then we'll take the rest of the questions at the end. So thanks for joining us. And with that, I'll pass it to Travis and Ben. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Travis Blunden. I work with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission as a wildlife viewing specialist.
And I'm also with FWC, and I'm the interpretive writer and planner. So,
all right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to share our screen. You guys seeing it now? I'll take that as a yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're here to talk about Florida WildQuest, a statewide scavenger hunt that we did, started a few years ago. And I'm going to go over a few things: our initial ideas, the planning, marketing, execution, results, and future plans. And if you were at the Academy and heard me give this presentation, it has been updated. We've had a whole nother session and another planning cycle. So there's more information than what we had at the original presentation. So if we rewind back in time, we started planning this during the summer of 2020 when we were all hidden away in our houses in lockdown, and we didn't really know what to do. We were trying to figure out how we could have an event without violating social distancing guidelines and putting people at risk. So we did a lot of brainstorming. We didn't know what to do. We were also planning this for 8 months out, and we had no idea what things would look like in 8 months. So we decided we needed to do something where we could get people outside, which was still considered a safe thing to do, but we had to interact with them virtually. We weren't going to do in-person things. And WMAs are wildlife management areas, for those who aren't familiar with our jargon. I'm going to use that a lot today. So wildlife management areas, it's the FWC managed areas. So we decided to use a social media approach initially. We wanted to use several different channels, publish challenges similar to a scavenger hunt where people could earn points by posting on social media and using hashtags. And we would give them points for different things. But as we got further into it, we realized it's going to be pretty difficult, and it's going to be hard to go back and forth to tally submissions, and the time to sort through and look at these was going to be pretty immense. So I think Anne was the first one to bring it up, but we discovered that there's scavenger hunt apps that are made for this kind of thing. And we did a little research. We found one called Goose Chase, and we liked it. It was well rated on the App Store and in Google Play, and it was free for the players. So the participants don't have to pay anything. They just have to download the app. So we inquired with Goose Chase and about getting a license for, so we could have a large game. And once we finally, got the license, we quickly shifted to do everything through Goose Chase through an app. And there were several benefits to doing it this way. So it let us put in all the quests ahead of time called missions. And so players can see what they are, what the score is. They can see what other people have posted, all of it in real time. We can also send game announcements, like messages through the game itself. So it just really simplified things. So, it tracked and tallied scores. We could communicate, and everything was automated. We could tell it when to start and set it a month ahead of time and not have to worry about making sure it's up that day and running and somebody's checking it and that kind of thing. So it really made our end a lot easier. So we have around 45 wildlife management areas in Florida. And so the way we decided to do it was we'd have one game. We called it the master game that could be played on any of them or multiple WMAs if they wanted to. We also chose 7 areas that we'd have a customized game just for that area, where we could ask them to go to specific locations and check in at certain spots. And we could have a little bit, we knew what wildlife were there, what different opportunities were there, so we could tailor the game a little better for those areas. We also had a kids game designed for children that maybe wouldn't be able to do all the tasks that we had for the regular game. And we did have prizes. We decided to award them randomly to people who earned enough points, which we made that bar pretty low. So we just wanted to make sure you actually played the game to be eligible. Here's just some screen grabs of the game. I know it's probably quite small, but you can see the different missions you can choose for your points. We assign the point levels, and as you do them, you can flip to a tab and see which ones you've completed. You can also look through and see what other people have submitted for most of them, and you can see the leaderboard, which is all the way on the right. You can see how many points they have and where your team stands. We let people name their own teams, so we had a lot of really interesting teams. Some just used the name, but some were pretty amusing. So we created a Facebook event that we could host and make awareness, use to bring about awareness, that we can advertise on social media to go to our Facebook event and click that you're interested. That way we can send messages and reminders to people along the way, and just give them some teasers as well throughout as the date approached. We also created a web page because we realized we had a lot of information we needed to get out to the people. They needed to know how to download and install Goose Chase, then join the correct game, which was done through a game code. They needed to know where they could play. And that was really difficult because they're spread out across the state, and we have some naming issues that make it difficult to know which areas are the ones to go to. And also, we wanted to make sure they knew their prizes and how they would qualify for the prizes. One reason we wanted them to take a survey or about the prize, to earn prizes, they had to take a survey and give us a little bit of information about themselves and about WildQuest event themselves. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's a screen grab of our webpage. This was taken during a kind of in-between time, but you see it has like join the quest, frequently asked questions, prizes, and where to play are the main things. Also links for joining the Facebook event and for downloading the Goose Chase app. So now we have this great event that we've been planning. We needed to make sure people knew about it. Like I said, we did have a Facebook event created for it, and we used social media to promote it. We used the Great Florida Birding and Wildlife Trail social media, which we directly control. We also used the agency's main Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts to announce. In addition to that, we paid for advertising on Facebook and Instagram. Put up some different ads. Some of these were just on our images, some were paid ads as well. We're just trying to emphasize exploring wild Florida and like grab your phone and go outside rather than do something indoors. Had a few others with video, some were stills, but we're just trying to instill a sense of adventure and going someplace new. Another thing we did was we asked like-minded organizations to help us get the word out. Our state Audubon chapter, Native Plant Society, we asked if they would help promote it on their social media accounts. We created a media kit that had the different images and some of the text that they could just mix together and make their own posts, but didn't have to do any creative writing or other such efforts. We realized that people had never played Goose Chase before, or most people hadn't, and it would be a good idea if they could see how it worked before they arrived on the morning of the event. So we created a practice game with a bunch of missions that could be accomplished around your yard and in your neighborhood. So it was mostly taking a picture of different types of animals, leaves, doing something, taking a picture with a tree, I think was what these guys were doing. Someone got a cool scarab beetle in their yard. And it turned out to be quite a success. We had over 650 people join that practice game and played it. So all this led up to our actual event. It started on May 1st, a Saturday, and ran for 9 days. So it was 2 weekends and the week in the middle. So as it went on, it actually went rather smoothly. We realized that people did a good job, and most of them, most games had several people complete every mission that we had in the game. And many people were really willing to do silly and embarrassing missions, which I did not think would be the case because I tend to not do those things. But I was amazed at how many people, I think it's the whole social media. Now with TikTok, I think it's even more common and less taboo to do silly things online. So here's an example of them doing animal imitations. So I don't know if you can hear it. The kids were doing mourning doves, and they did quite well, in fact. I skipped the wrong slide. So we also had people submit wildlife photos, and these are just from one game on one area, and these people were able to capture all this wildlife with their cell phones. So we were pretty impressed. And as time goes on, I know this year will probably be even better because more and more people have better cameras on their phones with Zoom and that kind of thing. But it was actually pretty amazing just to see what people were seeing out there. And as I mentioned earlier, we gave prizes out to different participants as long as they earned 2,000 points, which was completing 10 missions, most likely. They varied in how many points, but it wasn't a big effort. And then you had to take the survey and give us your things like your real name and email address so we knew where to go and how to get a hold of you. So for prizes, the first year we had a pair of binoculars, t-shirts, field guides, and a Planting the Refuge book that we gave to quite a few different people. Not the binoculars, but the other prizes. So after the games, we kind of totaled up what we had. We had over 850 different games played, which I'm sure actually were quite a few more people. A lot of families played just one account. So we had a lot more people than games played. And they, as a total, they completed 4,651 missions, which was quite a few. We were pretty impressed. So from the survey, which was just the people that responded to the survey, obviously not everyone did, 22% were first-time visitors to our WMAs, which we thought was pretty good. 98% said they would participate in future scavenger hunts, and the overall rating out of 5 they gave us was a 4.8. So we were very happy with that. From the survey, we also were able to see that 24 to 54 was the largest age group represented, and 90% of the people identified as white or Caucasian. So in the beginning, we had lofty goals of reaching all kinds of underrepresented groups, and most of that didn't happen, but we did get a lot of families, and we were very happy with that. So from the first year, our takeaways were that knowing that it was our first time to ever do anything like this, We found out that people really do like playing games. And so getting it out, doing our event hosted as a game was really a way to go. And then we also realized that to reach minorities and underrepresented groups, we were going to need to do more effort than we had our first year. So we're going to pause here if we have any questions. I can't see the chat to know. And then Ben's going to take over.
Yes, we do have two questions, Travis.
Okay.
First part from, let's see, does the scavenger hunt happen on a scheduled time frame only, or can it last in perpetuity so people can do it whenever they would like?
Yes, I think I'm not sure if it has to have an end time or not. I think you can just start it and leaving it running. We did these for 9 days. We've also, we'll get into how we've done it last year. We did change it a little bit. I did want to mention that we should have at least one person from Goose Chase on the call, and at the end we can direct those questions to them. They may know, or if there's other Goose Chase questions.
Okay, and the second part of that is follow up to that. When people post on the app about the scavenger hunt with their photos or their finds, did you get any hate messages? If so, can messages be managed, deleted if necessary? Are those messages public or just seen by the scavenger hunt organizer?
Yes, it varies a lot. So there are submissions, for each of missions. When you set up the game, you choose whether the other participants can see it. So if you're asking a question where the image would give it away, or if there's text ones as well, usually you don't share those. But the ones that are more fun and you want, for the most part, we want it to be social and people to see it. So yes, most of them can be seen by any other participant in that game. And we did not have, we were really worried about that, and we assigned people to be monitoring all the games every day, during daylight hours and checking. And we did not have really any that were like completely inappropriate or that we had to delete. We did delete a few that were like obviously not done on a wildlife management area. Like you could tell they're like inside their house or something, and you can give them a message when you delete it. You can tell them why, or but yeah, we didn't have any issues with that.
I think in the 2 years we had one picture or something where someone was being really silly and it was just borderline. I think maybe there was a dirty word in there or something like that, but that was the only thing that we had issue with, and it seemed like everybody that was playing was completely on board with keeping it clean and on task. All right, Anne, was there any other questions?
Nope, that was it.
Okay.
They said great.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about the second WildQuest in 2022, and then I'm going to talk about our plans for the upcoming WildQuest this spring, and talk about some lessons learned. So, 2021 we considered it a success. It was really fun. It seemed like a lot of people had a lot of fun, so we decided to do another one. And after a lot of debate, we came up with another cute mascot, another graphic you can see here. We thought Goose Chase worked really well for us and for the people that were using it. People really liked the app. It was easy to use. It's easy to put up the missions. And so we renewed our contract with Goose Chase. They were great to work with. And as for the whole of WildQuest, we kind of kept the same basic format, but we did make some changes based on issues that we had the year before. Like I said, we decided to change the mascot. We kind of went back and forth on whether we should keep the same mascot every year, but we found these cute pictures of raccoons, so I think we went with that instead. And this year we have a new mascot too. But the big change we had this year is that we took it down from the whole WMA system to just 12 of our wildlife management areas. And Travis kind of hit on this. We have a naming issue in our state for the wildlife management areas. There are lead wildlife management areas that FWC manages completely. And then there are co-op areas that are managed, we just manage like the hunting and fishing on, and a lot of them are state parks or water management district areas, things like that. So we did have some people playing on those areas, and we were concerned because we can't really control the, the way that trails look, or if trash was picked up or things like that before the game. So this year we thought we'd try, hey, what if we had 12 areas that we manage across the state and just concentrate on those. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also decided to do games only on Friday through Sunday for 2 weekends. So we didn't have that long stretch of 9 days with 2 weekends. We had 2 different weekends that were just Friday through Sunday. And we kind of decided to do that because not a lot of people played during the week on the first WildQuest. So they were just playing on the weekends anyway. And like Travis indicated, we were checking all throughout the week. We were taking shifts to make sure nobody was posting anything weird or people had issues. And that was a lot of work for our people. So we cut it down to 2 weekends. This year, and also this 2022, the pandemic restrictions had kind of lifted, things had more. So we thought, well, let's have staff on site. We wanted staff on site to see if, just have someone there, friendly face, answer questions, talk about wildlife. Almost all of our staff are biologists, so they can answer all those kind of questions. And then we also tried to do some outreach for underrepresented demographics. And Travis was talking about, we didn't really get them involved. They didn't become involved in the previous WildQuest, and so we wanted to actively try to reach out to them. And here's a graphic that we had on our website that shows all the areas across the state, the 12 areas that we did WildQuest 2022 at. And you can see we had the 2 weekends there. So we did have to come up with some graphic design and communication issues or strategies to get across that, hey, go to this wildlife management area on this weekend, and it won't be at that the next weekend. Let me go back, just talk a little bit about, no, that's good. So here are some of the results from 2022. Unfortunately, overall the numbers were down from the previous year. We only had 130 scavenger hunts played with 2,800 missions completed, which was actually more missions than previously. So far fewer people played, but those people played more, they played harder. They played a lot more missions. But we had a lot of really good feedback. Like you can see, 96% of people liked the Goose Chase app. 99% said they would do it again. I know in 2021, we had people asking us, will there be one in 2022? Because we hadn't decided that yet, but people are really excited about WildQuest. They love it. They're looking forward to the next one. 99% of people said that the scavenger hunt was fun. And 93% said they learned something new about the WMA, which was really kind of part of our mission, was to raise awareness about the wildlife management area system, and not just what wildlife and what happens on them, but that they actually exist, and that these are public lands that they can go out to and do this kind of thing all the time. So I see that as a success. So just a little bit about lessons learned from the 2 years we've done WildQuest. So like I was saying, in the second WildQuest, we did specific WMAs. We only did those 12 WMAs. And what we did is we had catered missions, catered games for those 12 WMAs, which made it more fun if you were able to get to those WMAs and play them, because you could, we went out and scouted beforehand and wrote missions that were specific to those WMAs, and you'd say, go around this corner and see this specific thing. But it didn't have the same statewide reach that allowing people to go out on the whole system did before. And it also required a lot more time on our part to create area-specific missions and do promotion for just those areas. We had flyers for just the areas. We were having site managers distribute them and reach out to different people for just those areas. And so, I'm sure most of you have small staffs too. We have a small staff, and it was a lot of work for not the same results as we had the first year when we had allowed people to play on any WMA in the system. Like I was saying, the second year we had staff on site. This required, cross-division coordination, and it required the staff from the sites to work on the weekends. which actually, I think cross-division coordination is a really good thing. We sometimes don't have that in our agency because we're so big and we're spread across the state. So sometimes people here in Tallahassee aren't able to coordinate as well with people down south. And so it was great to work with them and get them involved with WildQuest, which is something that was like a little bit out of their scope. But that also required a lot more work for less results. So we're coordinating schedules and making sure biologists were there and understood what the program was. But I think it wasn't a surprise. It was good because we had site managers before, kind of, we were kind of thinking maybe they weren't going to be too into it. This is kind of outside their scope. But actually afterwards, they were really excited about it. They loved WildQuest. It was good to have them actually come out and meet people and see how fun it was. And a lot of them were actually doing it themselves. And so we had a lot of good feedback from the site managers. But however, this year we won't be doing that because it's just a lot of work. And one of the big things that was surprising in the 2022 WildQuest that we didn't really notice in 2021, maybe because of the pandemic, but in the 2022 WildQuest, people got really competitive. So Travis was talking about how we had prizes, but the threshold for getting into the kind of lottery to win a prize was pretty low. So it wasn't like you really had to try too hard to get a prize. But what we noticed last year was people were going to multiple WMAs. They were going back to WMAs the next day if they saw someone else had beat them in the rankings. They were trying to get every single mission. And so that kind of surprised us. It made it really fun to watch. People were super competitive. They were like posting things about how they were gonna, go beat this other person and stuff. So it added another layer to the event, and it showed that we need to communicate and show like the rankings while the event is happening. And in our planning for next WildQuest, that's driven a lot of the discussion is like, how do we play into that aspect? Because really it's great to us when people are going to multiple WMAs or visiting the WMA more than once. So we are holding WildQuest again next year in the spring. We're doing plans for that now. As you can see, we have a new mascot. It's the green anole, and that is just something that we chose because people can relate to it. People see them in their backyards, but you can see them in pretty much every WMA here. It's one of the things you can reliably see in a WMA. And we're trying to combine the lessons that we had from the last 2 years and make this the optimum event. So this year we're going back to the hosting it on all the WMA system where you can play at any WMA. We realized that we were getting more participation that way, it gets more access to people, and they don't have to drive as far to get to a WMA. And like I was saying, it was a lot of work to cater the games to those 12 specific WMAs. So now we're just creating one game, maybe 2 games, like one for children and one for everyone. And then that will be a lot less work on our part and also a lot more access for other people. We're going to keep the 2 weekends, Friday through Sunday, that we learned from 2022. Like I said earlier, people weren't really playing to the week. And so we have 2 weekends in the spring. We're not going to do staff on site. While it's great to have that kind of interaction and we know people want it, it was just like a lot more work than we needed. And we think that this is more of a game for people to go do on their own time and not necessarily have staff. And like I said, we're going to try to feed into that competitive nature of the participants by having a ton of missions. So we plan on having a lot of missions in the one game, and some of them maybe that you need to travel to different WMAs to see because Florida is a big state. We have a lot of habitats, so there might be things that you do down south that you can't do up north. So we're hoping to drive people to kind of run around the state and go to different WMAs and get all those missions done, which will be really fun to watch. And this year, I think this is a sign that we're successful when we're talking about this to the public. I think Ann and Travis were at a outreach event recently, and they met up with these people from COA, and they just kind of spontaneously offered to sponsor our prizes this year. So to me, that's a good sign that the event is a success because sponsors are liking it. And so that's the plan for prizes for next year. I know we had so many prizes in the past that it was after the event was a lot of work to get them out. So I think we're kind of honing that down to just maybe these binoculars and a few other things. Is it fine?
Oh my god. And I'll give it stars because the wall captain like
and we've seen all kinds of animals, and we really enjoy it. It's a great program, and keep doing it. Thank you.
Our WildQuest adventure is complete. It was fantastic, a good opportunity to get out and look a little deeper, look for stuff. Thumbs up. We'll do again.
All right, well, I had fun. Getting a bird was harder than I thought it would be. But hopefully I can come back to hunt. This is a cool area. Thanks.
It was a good experience.
So those were just actual clips from the game. We decided that it would be a lot easier if we just asked people to give us a video review in the game, and it worked out well. We got a lot of good clips like that.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that those are spontaneous. You know, I mean, people were asked to review the game, and we weren't there prompting them or asking them to kind of give these great reviews or act it up or anything like that. Those are just submitted to us. So you can see, and people talking about wanting to come back, people talking about wanting to do other recreational activities on the wildlife management areas, and that was definitely our goal with this whole thing. All right, so if anybody has any questions for us about planning for WildQuest or any ideas, or if you have questions maybe for the Goose Chase people, if one of them wants to chime in. And I don't know if y'all are keeping track of the
I
questions.
have a few questions. Carrie would like to know what kind of time commitment for your staff did it take to make these one quest versus many quests? Therefore, how much lead time should you assign to set this up?
It's, you know, all the wildlife management areas are different. We all have different experiences having visited them or not. So some of them are easier to create specific missions for, but it's a hard question to answer because we didn't really recycle questions the next year, but we used questions from the first year and the second year to kind of like inspire what we're going to do, what the missions we're going to create. But it's definitely a time commitment if you're not already aware of the wildlife management areas that you're writing questions for. So you need to find someone, like I myself had traveled to quite a few of them, so I was able to kind of contribute and say, yeah, you will actually be able to see this animal on this WMA at this time of year. But once you get the ball rolling, and if you have a good team, people just like pop up stuff all the time. It's really great to have someone, like I don't have children, and Travis does. So he was able to contribute quite a few things. He's like, kids love these frogs or whatever, you know, and I had not thought about that. But definitely doing one game is a lot less work and a lot less time commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we had somebody created games, and then they would, before they even started, we usually had them get with the area manager for when we were doing the specific areas, get with them, be like, you know, kind of explain to them what we were doing and ask them, are there like features you want people to go? Because you can do a check-in, add like, you know, if we have a wildlife overlook or a viewing spot, we can make people check in, or we can have them do a selfie there, or what's unique about your area, what, you know, trying to get a little bit of the local flavor to make sure we included that in the game. And they also reviewed them all after we wrote them to make sure we weren't asking people to do something that couldn't be done on the area.
Yeah, I guess what he's getting at there is, you know, spread out the work, like find people who are experts about the areas you're talking about and ask them what would be cool to talk about it. And the other thing that we relied on a lot was what was the mission of the agency. So we were trying to get across the management we do for wildlife and also the management we do of land. Like we had questions about prescribed burning, about go for tortoise management, things like that, or missions that kind of like highlighted what the agency was doing. So that was a well we could draw from to make missions, and that made it a little easier.
And another lesson is to have someone that's not a biologist review them, because we tend to use big words and terms that maybe the general public doesn't understand. So we had to change wording and missions that people wrote, myself included, that, you know, we assume everyone knows that, but they don't. So you need to be sure you write to the correct level of your participants.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So Olivia wants to know, do you have a ballpark cost for securing a license, renewing a contract with Goose Chase?
I don't know if either of us were privy to that kind of thing, and that's probably something you'd want to talk to Goose Chase about. I think that what we did with them was the first time they had done like a statewide or like a natural area wide or whatever, like a lot of different
We're not
places.
the typical users.
Yeah, we weren't the typical users, so whatever the cost was for us was probably different than.
I don't know. I saw Erin from Goose Chase was on. I don't know if she wants to speak up or not. Or
Hi, everyone. First off, Travis, that was amazing. And thank you for inviting us. I'm account manager here at Goose Chase, and I've got a few of my flock mates on the call. I have Eric, our product manager, Mia, our content marketer, and Chris is our head of community. So exactly like Travis said, pricing is custom, but we do have a 50% discount for nonprofit groups. So if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to us, either hi@goosechase.com, or you can also email me, Erin@goosechase.com.
And I'll jump in because I handle the contract and the monetary side of our project here at FWC, and Erin and Goose Chase have been wonderful to work with. Very easygoing, it's just been wonderful, Erin. The only little glitch, and many of you might have it except for maybe Carrie, is that they're a Canadian company, so you have to deal with that, you know, your terms and conditions dealing with a Canadian company, but we've been able to jump through those hoops and get it to line up to work.
Wait, Goose Chase is Canadian?
We are, yes.
Oh.
But we invoice in USD, so not
Yes.
a problem at all.
Yes.
Yeah, that's way better for me.
Carrie's in the Yukon, so that works out well. She's in the Yukon.
yeah, Florida for our purchase orders has all these crazy requirements that don't really apply to non-US companies, but they make us put them in anyway, so it's problematic.
Yeah. Okay. You may have said it from Amy, you may have said it, but what was the number of people who participated each year? And Kayla had the same question.
Yeah, we don't really have an exact total of people. What we do know is how many games were played. And so the first year it was 850 games. So we easily could have been over 1,000 people. It's hard to know. Sometimes two people come in and they play each on their own phone. So one game in that case equals one person. But then you also have a lot of times families that come in, especially with the children. They do not have their own phones. And so you may have 5 people playing on one game. So we really don't have a count of how many, because even if we ask that in the survey, only a certain percentage of the people take the survey anyway. So we just kind of inferred from, we just use number of games as our measuring stick. So without people. In the second year, it was down. Like I said, we did it to only 12 areas, which is a little less than a quarter of the areas, or around a quarter. And it showed in our numbers, it was around 130 games. So it dropped quite a bit. And like we said in the presentation, those people did on average more than double the number of missions. I think because they were better missions, because they were customized for the areas. So we got better involvement, but fewer people.
Okay, and I answered Elba in the chat, but how did you ensure they were at the correct site when completing the missions? And I answered that some of our missions included selfies by the entrance sign or known areas. You noticed in one of the video, it was by some of the interpretive panels. Or we asked questions that could only be answered if you read an interpretive panel at the site. And that kind of gave us the clue that they were on the correct site. Did you have anything to add, Travis or Ben?
Yeah, I mean, that's most of it is just, we give them really enticing, easy missions to complete for a good number of points that involve like a selfie. What we did, I think, was we had take a picture of the entrance sign and we gave them bonus points if it was a selfie. And so that's kind of just the way we checked. And we do know, like the first year we had, I think it was around 20% of people went to the wrong areas because it is confusing. But we decided, we're still going back to that model. We decided it was okay. We still got them outside doing things, wildlife viewing, checking things out, even if it was not on the areas we wanted them to. And yeah, so we don't 100% know everyone was there, but usually we can tell, and based on the photos.
Well, and then too, if you want to be, strict about it, WildQuest, some of the missions you can have people check in at certain coordinates within the range of a certain coordinate. So we did have them do that. We didn't have them do that to make sure they were in the right place. We just had them do that to kind of like go to this viewing blind, go to this overlook and things like that, just to get them the coordinates. And it's kind of cool to check into places too. The other thing about Goose Chase that's cool about it, and this is a big problem for pretty much everything we do that has tech, any kind of internet-enabled tech on the wildlife management areas, is that our wildlife management areas are very remote. And it's getting better all the time, but a lot of them do not have self-service. And so what's cool about Goose Chase is that they could get access to the game beforehand. They could have all the missions out, they could take the pictures, they could write the responses, and once they got back to somewhere where they had Wi-Fi or cell service, it would upload it to Goose Chase and it would count as the points. So that was a big thing for us in planning, because we were like, how are we gonna do this remote virtual thing when there's no cell service? And Goose Chase was really good for that. And I think that was a big reason why we didn't go with the social media thing we were talking about previously, because you wouldn't be able to get on Facebook and save it for later on or something like that.
Yeah, and another thing we used the check-ins for, not just to prove where they were, but we just, we wanted to lead them around and show them the high points of our areas. And so we were able, by doing the game just for a single area, you could kind of direct them through the missions, to get them to see the high points of the areas. And like, if you're visiting for the first time, where would you want to send people? We made sure we included those in the games.
Okay. Megan, I like your thought. Megan says, if we can get other states using this, I'm hoping that we can in Virginia. It would be amazing to have multi-state competitions. When you were looking at possible alternatives, did you encounter free scavenger hunt apps? And if so, what was it about Goose Chase that pushed you to pursue it as opposed to a free option?
Well, I'm trying, that was almost 3 years ago now, or maybe it was over 3 years ago. I think the way we could interact with people with Goose Chase, I think Goose Chase is free for, like, if you're only going to use a few participants. It's when you go over a certain threshold, you got to have an account. I'm not sure. We looked into one or two others, and I think it was just the finish, the polish. It was a very polished app, and it worked well. And you might have more insight too.
Yeah, being a state agency, of course, we had to go out and get quotes from different organizations, different possibilities, but most of the free versions didn't give us the breadth of the numbers that we needed. It limited the number of games and the number of missions that we could have. So we opted for the paid version, which gave us the functionality that we needed.
Yeah, and I think the Goose Chase, I looked at a couple of other ones too, a couple of free ones, and Goose Chase just had the best look. It had the best user interface. And I think that's really important nowadays when people are being asked to download apps all the time, take that extra step. It was very easy to download it. It's very easy to figure out how to use it as a user. It was also very easy on our end to make the missions and put them up on there. So they just had it laid out very well, and like they said, it looks cool, it has a good feel, it functions very well. I haven't experienced any kind of technical issues with it. We haven't heard anything like that. So
so there's definitely things we would like added, and we've told them before, and they've actually asked us to contribute, so that's good. But yeah, overall, if people, you saw from our survey, people did like the app and it worked well. And I think it would just, we wanted something that we knew would work, that would look good and represent well. You know, if we could have an awesome game, but if the interface wasn't good, you know, people wouldn't join again or wouldn't participate.
We had two questions about reaching underserved communities and minority participation. One was, did you see a change in minority participation from year 1 to year 2?
yeah, I think I accidentally skipped over what we did in year 2 to try to reach out. We actually had 2 of the wildlife management areas that we identified that had heavy Hispanic user participation and or were in areas that had a lot of people who spoke Spanish, and we designed games in both English and Spanish for those areas. And I don't know, Anne, maybe you had results on whether we had a higher participation of people with Spanish speaking, or I'm not sure.
I believe we did, but it was only by like 1%. It wasn't, it was
Judging by the submissions, I can't tell what language they were reading the missions in, but most of them responded in English. I think there was only a few that were in Spanish, but that doesn't mean they weren't reading them in Spanish and talking in English, which is very common. So I don't think we had quite the reach we hoped by making that extra effort, but we're still working on it.
Yeah, I mean, we made more of an effort in the second year to reach out to like Outdoor Afro, Pride Outside. But like Travis noted earlier, reaching out to those kind of partners, we didn't see a lot of return on that, or we were just, it kind of went into a black hole where we weren't sure what kind of return we got on it. So you just kind of send the stuff out to the partners and say, hey, it's a cool event, and hope that they send people.
And that's kind of touches on the follow-up from another person. Do you have any data on reaching underserved communities? Sometimes we struggle with getting demographics for our programs. It sounds like y'all also maybe struggle with getting demographics for the programs. Commonality.
Yeah, I know our outreach coordinator, you know, went to some of the surrounding areas and put posters up in some, you know, areas that hopefully would, you know, have a lot of Hispanic use. That's what we were targeting with those, and did a decent amount of effort. It didn't seem, I don't know if the payout was there. So I think we haven't found the formula yet. We're still trying.
Then we had a question about, is there any kind of privacy paperwork that you do ahead of time or disclaimers?
Yeah, so there's a default terms of service when you join a game, and you're allowed to customize that. So we customized it, and I'm not sure people read it, but they checked that they agreed to it. And it basically gave us permission to use any photographs or any media that they upload, and, you know, some liability text. I wouldn't mind it if it made it at least pop open in a window next Goose Chase. but yeah, because I think you can just check it without reading it. So that's why we were able to use things. Typically, if it involved children and I was putting it on the internet, I usually tried to reach out to the participant and just confirm it. But for the adults, we just used it. Then like they checked the box and gave us permission, so we used it.
And I don't know if y'all be able to answer this. Aaron, we know that pricing is custom, but is there a way to give a range? And I think they're looking at, is it in the hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands? So even like that kind of broad range, I think would be helpful for people to get their heads around.
Absolutely. I'm going to pop some information in the chat as well. But if you're looking to run just a single game, we offer a single experience license on a per event basis. And those are priced in tiers based on how many participants or teams that you'll need. So our lowest tier would be up to 8 teams or participants. Nonprofit cost would be $200. And then it increases incrementally. So for example, to give you just a couple other pricing tiers, if you needed up to 100 participants, the cost would be $1,000 US. Up to 200 participants would be $1,300 US. Up to 500 would be $2,600 US. We've got a whole variety of different amounts. So if you do need pricing for, lower number of participants or higher, definitely get in touch with us. But most of our customers run multiple experiences throughout a year. So we also offer a 1-year unlimited annual license, which is custom pricing. So definitely best to contact us if you're interested in learning more about annual.
Perfect. That's a great answer. And then a question for Travis. What were some of your favorite tasks? What seemed to be the most engaging things that you would encourage other states to incorporate into their scavenger hunts? Like, what do people like to do?
Oh, well, I liked ones where you could talk about either some management processes or plants and animals that you knew they could find there. So we talked about resurrection fern, which is, a fern that grows on a lot of the trees. Saw palmetto, which is a very important wildlife food source and is prevalent on most of our areas of Florida. So when you can just throw out, take a picture of this, but then in the text you can include that, like, oh, they're hugely important for their pollination and for the berries, and things like that, where you can build education in. I like those the best. Or about an animal. We did one for the kids about pine cones, explaining how the seeds are in the cone and when they open, the seeds fall out. Things like that. Some of the more amusing ones are when we ask people to do something like imitate an animal species, or we've done one, I think we did it both years, where we asked people to narrate a documentary imitating David Attenborough or Steve Irwin or something, and some of those are really silly, some are terrible, but some are really funny and good, or some are just really good too. And so there's a huge range of what you're going to get when you ask those kind of open-ended. You don't tell them what they have to talk about or what it is, and so it's some of that. Those are kind of fun to get, and you can see a huge range. And I was impressed. We asked people to give a review on the way out, and those were really good. And that's, I gave you a clip with a few of them put together, but that was really interesting to get like the user reviews that we can use for future advertising. I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, well, I was just going to talk about like the David Attenborough thing. I mean, some of those were just really good and really funny, and it's amazing what people do. And we, we have our view of the wildlife management areas, but to see it through other people's eyes was great.
Excellent. Does the app do language translation, or do you need to create a separate game for each language?
That's a good one, because we dealt with this, and we mentioned to Goose Chase that we would love it if you could have it where it or you could have like 2 versions of the same game. So we ended up putting English followed by Spanish on the same game and the same screen. It makes it so the longer missions you have to scroll to read. If you were in reading the Spanish, it's below. You'd have to scroll a little bit. We considered doing 2 separate games, but then we're treating them separately, and like the leaderboard and the shared missions, that you wouldn't see people of the opposite language. They would be completely separated without seeing into it. So we opted to put them all into the same game, and we basically repeated every mission twice for the 2 games that we did that had Spanish translations.
I think that, if you get into translating and realize all the aspects of that, we are a long way out from having some kind of automatic thing, especially for something like this, because we use so many idiomatic phrases, especially as like the titles of things. We were using little cool, like cute catchphrases that maybe even just like American English speakers would understand. So that really requires someone who is able to translate and come up with something creative in the other language a lot of times. And a lot of knowledge about the culture. So I don't think a built-in translator is going to work for this kind of thing unless you're going to have like really kind of dry missions. That and we tried to make them fun and cute and witty and with puns and things like that. And that just does not, computer's not a long way out from being able to do that.
And this is a question that it's not really a question, but it is a comment about someone's privacy officer's head exploding. Did you deal with anyone in legal, or do you have a privacy officer at Florida? And were there any, do you have any advice, I guess, on what to go in, how you can kind of answer the questions before they're asked?
I think Anne probably has the best.
Yeah, we did deal with our legal. We did run what we put in that terms and conditions with legal to make sure that we were covered. And like Travis said, when it came to youth, we did reach out to parents to make sure that we were able to use their images in our products. But yeah, our legal was fine with it. I mean, we're a public domain state, so anything that you give us is potentially open to the public, and they were fine with it.
That is all the questions I saw. If I missed any, please speak up, or if you have any follow-up questions, now is the time. All right, hearing none, we have about 4 minutes left to the hour, so perfect timing, guys. Thank you for sharing this. For those who went to the Academy last year, you got to play this in real time, and it is a super fun app and great missions and exciting, and it does bring out the competitive spirit in folks, which is very entertaining to watch. It looks like Travis and Ben, if y'all can drop your contact info in the chat, people would appreciate that before we log off. And thank you all for joining us today. We will get the recording up. I'm going to finish recording now.